This was our second day in Kenya. We'd had a good night's sleep at the Lake Naivasha Country Club, although it took a while to get used to the idea of hippos grazing on the lawn outside our room. An early breakfast for us was followed by a chance to check out the black-faced vervet monkeys that were enjoying their own breakfasts out in the grounds. This youngster was clearly enjoying the big lump of crusty bread, presumably provided by the hotel kitchen. The hotel grounds skirted the edge of the lake, where the hippos came from and where we would be taking a boat ride this morning. What a startling turquoise! The boat trip was to be taken from a spot just along the shore from the hotel, so we clambered aboard our safari vans for the short ride. Naivasha waterbucks were grazing in the hotel grounds. This antelope is always found in scrub and savanna closely associated with water. We parked the vans in a flat area studded with trees, on the lake shore. Our boats awaited, but first there were birds to see. Spur-winged lapwings scurried across the grass in front of us. Our first of the many amazing African starlings was the relatively plain-looking wattled starling. That was quickly followed by the truly spectacular, and very well-named, superb starling. We had been concerned that this species might be difficult to tell apart from the similar Hildebrandt starling, but in the event it was quite easy. The adult superb's creamy white eye and white breastband was very obvious in the field. The next starling we found was the beautiful Ruppel's starling. The glossy dark plumage looked shiny green and blue in the bright morning sun. The waters of Lake Naivasha have been rising over the last few years, leaving the trees that were previously on the edge, marooned and dead in the water. They made good perches for birds such as the lilac-breasted roller. Time to load up the boats, only briefly delayed by a yellow-billed stork who watched us pick our way along a makeshift jetty from his elevated perch. The party, of 11 guests and 4 guides and drivers, were accommodated in 3 long motorboats. We were soon out on the lake, floating past water hyacinth beds and great egrets, and seeing great white pelicans and hippopotamus in the distance. This pied kingfisher was the first of numerous sightings on the trip. The lake edges and floating hyacinth was home to African jacana. We looked in vain for the much less common lesser jacana, here and elsewhere. A female Nubian woodpecker on a tree stump in the middle of the water. The male is distinguished by the complete red cap and red malar stripe. This male giant kingfisher was keeping a watchful eye from his perch above the water. This was one species that had benefited from the drowned trees. Boat trips during the tour were scheduled for the morning, as lakes could become quite choppy later in the day as the winds got up. It was quite calm now, but it would get bumpier later, as we would see. We were rather pleased with the very good views we got of this black crake. Many, if not most rails are rather secretive, so we are used to not seeing them well. This species is the exception. Perhaps it is because they are not hunted, with the flesh being described as unpalatable. A bit of a contentious species here. The lovebirds seem to live up to their name by hybridizing freely with each other, so whether these are purebred yellow-collared lovebirds is disputed. eBird does not accept them, but our guide, Washington Wachira, says they are good just here. We believe him, of course, as the birder on the ground is much more knowledgeable than a website based a whole continent away. Anyway, they are fantastic birds, just lovely to see. A mountain grey woodpecker hangs at an unusual angle off a tree. The red cap denotes it is male, and he just shows the red belly patch that distinguish the species from African grey woodpecker. This one with a completely grey head is a female. The reed cormorant is also known, more prosaically, as the long-tailed cormorant. It is one of only 2 cormorant species found in Kenya. We would be seeing the other one very shortly. We saw a bird that was surprisingly reminiscent of the bald eagles that we could see from our windows at home in Nova Scotia. This one is a relative, the African fish eagle, a bird generally found near freshwater lakes in much of sub-Saharan Africa, since its requirements are open water with sufficient prey and a good perch. This lake seemed to be perfect for them. Some authorities consider the white-breasted cormorant as a species in its own right. Others, including eBird, think it is a variety of great cormorant. It is a very distinctive bird. It is always pleasing to find a hammerkop, an Afrikaans word meaning hammerhead and named for its distinctive head shape. We were heading towards Crescent Island. This is run as a wildlife sanctuary, but we were not going to land. Instead, we would tour the edge, spotting animals and birds as we went. On shore we could see our first blue wildebeest. The sky was absolutely full of swallows and martins, swooping for insects over the herds. In the shallows at the edge of the island we found squacko heron and Defasa waterbuck, clearly in their element. The females kept close together in small herds whilst the odd male, sporting magnificent horns, sat proudly and seemed to survey his domain. There are no large predators on the island. Birds dotted along the shoreline included curlew sandpiper and a mass of great white pelicans, interspersed with African sacred ibis. Plain zebra and common impala grazed peacefully behind the birds. The lake was getting a little choppy. A nice sighting was this Kittlitz plover, not a bird we saw very often. It never showed well, being distant and active. A flock of gull-billed terns was more obliging. The island edge, with floating vegetation, made it prime habitat for the rather odd-looking long-toed lapwing, and we duly found some here. Another pied kingfisher, a male, had caught a fish and was trying to subdue it. It was interesting to watch it repeatedly shuffle the prey and then bash it against the perch, probably to break the spine before it tried to swallow it. Incidentally, the bouncy nature of the video shows how choppy the open water of the lake had become since we had embarked. Heading back to the jetty, we found some dark lumps in the water which we then realized were hippopotamuses, much closer than the one we'd glimpsed earlier in the trip, although not as close as these might seem. Telephoto lenses are very useful. Hippos usually spend the heat of the day lounging in water or mud, protecting their skin from the scorching sun, and coming out of the water at dusk to graze. Seeing hippos in the wild has to be one of the best things ever. We were getting close to the jetty now. There was just time to take a look at a stately Goliath heron hunting in the margins. This is the world's largest living heron species, capable of reaching 5 feet in height with a 7-foot-plus wingspan. Our tour of the lake was finished. It had been excellent, although we managed only 9 lifers out of the 59 species of bird we had seen from the boat. We had enjoyed great views though. Next we were off south, towards the Masai Mara, and an overnight stop in a tented camp actually within the reserve. We were very much looking forwards to that. For more information, see our 3-volume travelogue, in e-book and paperback format, from Amazon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss all the other installments of the Kenyan birding safari.